Welcome to the deep dive.
Let's get straight to it. We're tackling something I know hits home for so many of us, maybe even you listening right now. That frustrating gap between starting something with, a real spark of excitement and actually seeing it through to the end.
Yeah, those projects that just kind of fizzle out.
Exactly. Think of those brilliant ideas that never quite materialized, those goals that sort of faded like old photographs.
It's a common struggle for sure.
So today, our mission, digging into these fascinating insights, is really to uncover practical, psychology-backed strategies. We want to help the learner in all of us become someone who consistently crosses that finish line.
And it's not about finding some magic bullet of motivation, is it?
No, forget fleeting motivation. We're talking about building lasting habits and let's call it cultivating a real finisher's mindset.
Exactly. It's less about that initial burst, which, let's face it, can be totally unpredictable.
Like the weather, as the material suggests. Right, exactly like the weather. It's more about creating a steady, sustainable approach. What's really interesting as we look at this material is the emphasis on the small, consistent actions.
The day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, the everyday things, rather than waiting for some huge wave of inspiration to, sweep you to completion.
Okay, so let's dive into that first big idea that grabbed me. This myth of motivation. The idea that waiting for it is, well, unreliable.
Spot on, relying solely on how we feel on any given day. It's like building your house on sand, isn't it?
It really is. And the anecdote about Laura, the writer,
Yeah.
that really illustrated it.
Oh yeah, the one with all the brilliant ideas, but not much follow through.
That's her. The initial excitement was definitely there. She'd get inspired, maybe buy the perfect notebooks.
Set up the ideal writing space.
Right, but when it came down to the actual, daily grind of putting words on the page, that feeling just wasn't a reliable enough engine. It led to stagnation.
And that highlights the core contrast, doesn't it? Between that fleeting inspiration and what actually moves the needle, discipline and routine.
Routine. So it's less about constantly debating if you feel like doing it.
And more about it just becoming an automatic part of your day. It takes that mental load of decision-making right out of the picture.
Shifts the focus from, do I feel like it, to this is just what I do now.
Precisely. And that consistency, well, like Tony Robbins said, it's what shapes our lives.
It's not what we do once in a while.
It's what we do consistently. That's the key.
Okay, and building on that, let's unpack a really practical tool mentioned, the 2-minute rule.
Ah, yes. Love this one.
It sounds almost too simple. Like, how can 2 minutes make a real difference?
Well, what's fascinating is why it works. It directly tackles the biggest hurdle for most people.
Just getting started.
Exactly. That initial inertia. It takes a surprising amount of energy just to begin sometimes. So, by shrinking the commitment down to something ridiculously small, like literally just putting on your running shoes, not even going for the run yet.
Or opening the book and reading just one page.
Right. You drastically lower that psychological barrier. It's like you trick your brain because the task feels so insignificant, it hardly registers as effort.
So it's not really about the 2 minutes of doing.
Not entirely. It's about hacking your brain's resistance, creating that first tiny ripple of momentum. Once you've started, even for 2 minutes, overcoming the next bit of resistance is much easier.
Okay, that makes sense. You think, okay, 2 minutes, I can handle that. And then often you just keep going.
You do. So we've got a way to start. But what keeps us going when things get tough? When that initial momentum fades? The material points to the power of your why.
The purpose behind it all.
This is absolutely fundamental. Your why is that deep, intrinsic fuel. It goes way beyond fleeting feelings, especially when you hit challenges.
It's the core reason you're doing it in the first place.
Exactly. The metaphor used, the challenging mountain journey, is perfect.
Right. Without knowing why you're climbing, why endure the hard parts?
Every obstacle feels like a reason to quit. Psychologically, this taps into our intrinsic motivation, those internal desires and values. And research shows that's far more powerful, far more sustainable than just chasing external rewards.
And the story of James, the marathon runner.
Yeah, running to honor his father's memory.
That really drove it home. It wasn't about the medal, was it? It was that deep emotional connection, that sense of purpose.
That's what fueled him, even through the immense physical and mental pain, I imagine. That emotional resonance elevates the goal. It's not just a task anymore.
It becomes personal, significant.
Right. And those reflection questions are powerful prompts for anyone listening. Who benefits if you succeed? Who suffers maybe if you give up? What kind of person do you actually become by pursuing this?
Those really make you think. connects your actions to deeper consequences.
And the suggestion to write that why down, review it daily, that acts as a constant anchor. Reinforces that purpose when things get tough.
Okay, so we have our why. Now, shifting gears a bit, the material talks about identity.
Yeah.
How we see ourselves.
Yes, and how that perception dramatically influences whether we finish things. This idea of consciously building the identity of a finisher.
It's quite thought-provoking, isn't it?
It really is. What's profound is realizing just how strongly our self-perception shapes our behavior. If you've kind of unconsciously adopted this story about yourself, oh, I'm the type of person who starts strong but fades.
Then your actions tend to follow that script.
Exactly. So the power lies in intentionally, consciously shifting that internal identity.
I like the analogy of putting on a new jacket. The moment you start identifying as something specific, say, I'm a writer, it creates this internal, pressure almost to act consistently with that identity.
Like actually writing.
Yeah, we're saying I'm someone who keeps promises to myself. That feels like a powerful, self-reinforcing cycle for building self-respect.
Absolutely. Our beliefs are like filters for our actions. So if you deliberately cultivate the belief, I am a finisher, you naturally start behaving in ways that support that.
And the finisher statement seems like a practical tool for that.
It is. It helps solidify that new identity through affirmation, through repetition, regularly saying, I am someone who finishes what I start, I honor my goals, I keep my promises. It starts to subtly rewire that internal narrative.
Okay, so we're building the identity, we've got our why, we're using the 2-minute rule. But what about getting stuck in our heads? That trap of overthinking.
Well, such a common roadblock. Overthinking often masquerades as being diligent, right? Like, I'm just preparing thoroughly.
But it's really a form of fear. Avoidance?
Often, yes, it can be rooted in fear. Fear of failing, fear of not being good enough, sometimes even fear of succeeding. The example of Daniel, the entrepreneur with the brilliant app idea.
Stuck in endless planning.
So relatable. He spent months mapping out every tiny detail, but never actually built anything.
That classic analysis paralysis. You think and plan so much, you never actually start doing.
And the key insight here is that clarity. It doesn't usually come from more thinking in a vacuum. It comes from action.
Like the fog metaphor?
Exactly. You can't see the whole path when you start walking into fog. But as you take a step, the next bit becomes clearer than the next.
Brian Tracy's quote fits perfectly. You cannot steer a parked car.
Brilliant. You need movement to get direction.
So the antidote is just take the first step, even if it's small, messy, imperfect.
That's it. Just start moving. Now, closely related to overthinking is another big hurdle. Perfectionism.
Ah, yes. The desire to get everything just right before we even begin.
It often gets framed as this noble pursuit, doesn't it? Striving for excellence.
But the material here suggests it can be, a trap.
A major trap. The saying, perfect is the enemy of done, is just so profoundly true. Think about a child learning to draw.
They don't worry about masterpieces.
No, they just draw. They engage in the process, they learn by doing, they gradually get better. They're not paralyzed by needing the first drawing to be flawless.
But as adults, we develop this fear, right? Fear of not being good enough immediately.
Which can totally paralyze us. We wait for this feeling of complete readiness, perfect knowledge.
Which often never actually arrives.
Exactly. That waiting game can go on forever, stopping us from ever finishing. And that's where the 70% rule comes in.
Okay, explain that one.
It's a practical strategy. The idea is to consciously aim for good enough as your starting point, rather than waiting for 100% perfect.
So don't wait until every single detail is flawless.
Right. Get things maybe 70% ready, 70% clear in your mind, and then start. Take action. You can refine and improve as you go based on actual experience.
Like my experience launching that coaching program you mentioned.
Tell us about that.
Well, I was so caught up trying to make every module, every worksheet absolutely perfect before I even thought about launching.
Delaying it indefinitely.
Pretty much. Realizing I could launch with a solid maybe 70–80% version and then iterate based on real feedback, that was a total game changer. It actually got it out there.
That's a perfect example. Letting go of that unattainable perfection allowed you to actually finish and deliver value.
Okay, so we've tackled overthinking and perfectionism. Let's dig into procrastination. The material says it's often more than just laziness.
That's a really key distinction. It points out that procrastination is very often a symptom of deeper underlying fears.
Like fear of failure.
Or fear of success, surprisingly. Fear of being judged, fear of looking silly, that nagging feeling of just not being good enough.
So it's more of an emotional problem, an avoidance tactic.
Exactly. It's often an emotional response. We unconsciously avoid tasks that feel heavy, confusing, overwhelming, or scary in some way.
So instead of beating ourselves up for being lazy, it's more helpful to ask, what feeling am I trying to avoid here?
Precisely. And to help break through that avoidance, there's another simple tool, the 5-minute rule.
Similar to the 2-minute rule.
Very similar principle. You commit to working on that task you're dreading for just 5 minutes. That's it.
Makes it feel less daunting, I guess.
Hugely less daunting. It dramatically lowers that perceived barrier. It's like, stepping into a cold swimming pool.
The anticipation is worse than the reality.
Often, yes. Once you're in for those 5 minutes, the resistance starts to fade, and you often find you can just keep going for much longer.
It's about breaking that initial wall, building a little momentum. Okay, speaking of breaking things down, the power of small wins.
Oh, this is fundamental for tackling big goals.
Because large goals can feel overwhelming.
Paralyzing.
Totally. They can feel so distant, so huge, that you don't even know where to start, so you don't.
The analogy of eating a pizza one slice at a time is simple but effective.
You don't try to eat the whole thing at once.
No, you break it down. Same with goals. Instead of write a book,
Yeah, which is huge.
you focus on write 100 words today, or outline 1 chapter, or even just create the document file.
These micro goals. Clear, measurable, achievable.
And crucially, they feel attainable. Ticking off those small wins builds that vital sense of momentum and accomplishment.
It proves you're making progress.
Right. The puzzle analogy works well too. A 1,000-piece puzzle looks impossible at first.
Not a jumbled mess.
But you focus on finding one edge piece, then another. You connect 2 pieces. Slowly, the picture emerges. Each small connection is a win.
So the challenge for anyone listening is take one big goal and break it down into one tiny task you can do today.
Yes. Like sending 1 email, creating 1 folder, writing the first sentence. That first tiny step is often the most critical.
Okay, we've covered mindset, tools, breaking things down. Now let's talk about systems versus willpower. Why are systems better?
Because willpower, well, it's fickle, isn't it? And it's finite.
Like a battery that runs down.
Exactly like a battery, or a muscle that gets tired. Every decision you make all day, big or small, taps into that limited reserve. By evening, it's often depleted.
Which is why it's easy to skip the gym or grab takeout even with the best intentions.
Precisely. Systems, though, they're like putting things on autopilot. They remove the need for that constant decision-making in the moment. They make the desired behavior the default, the easy option.
So laying out your gym clothes the night before, that's a system.
A simple but powerful one. Or scheduling specific deep work blocks in your calendar. Or having a set weekly review process.
It automates the important stuff.
Right. These systems are like reliable solar panels, constantly powering your progress without needing that daily surge of willpower. Your example of a morning ritual.
Water, 3 priorities, 1 small task.
That's a perfect system. It sets a positive, productive tone for the whole day automatically.
Okay, so we build systems. How do we make sure we're staying on track? The importance of tracking progress.
Yes, making progress visible. The old saying holds true. What gets measured gets managed.
Why is tracking so effective?
Because it provides objective evidence that you are moving forward, even on days you don't feel like you are.
Fights that feeling of stagnation.
Exactly. It counteracts discouragement and reinforces your commitment. It shows you the effort is adding up.
Like Jerry Seinfeld's don't break the chain method.
That's a classic example, whether it's a checklist, a habit tracker app, a journal, a whiteboard, or just putting an X on a calendar.
Seeing that chain of X's grow.
It's incredibly motivating. It provides that visual proof of consistency and makes you want to keep the streak going.
Makes sense. Now, inevitably, things won't always go smoothly. Setbacks happen. Bad days.
Absolutely. And the key is how we frame them.
The material suggests reframing failure as feedback.
Yes, valuable feedback. Normalizing setbacks as just part of the process, not the end of the road.
I liked the GPS analogy.
Recalculating.
Right. It doesn't yell at you for taking a wrong turn. It just adjusts the route. It's neutral, non-judgmental.
That's the mindset. A mistake isn't a catastrophe, it's just information. An opportunity to learn, adjust, and keep going.
Like Thomas Edison and the light bulb.
All those failures were just steps. finding ways that didn't work on the path to the one that did. It's a growth mindset perspective.
Seeing setbacks as detours, not dead ends.
Exactly. You learn, you recalculate, you keep moving.
Okay, let's circle back to identity again. Because the material really emphasizes this deep link between self-belief and finishing.
It's truly fundamental, often working subconsciously. Those limiting beliefs we might hold. I'm not disciplined, I never finish things.
They can become self-fulfilling prophecies.
Sadly, yes. They subtly sabotage our efforts. But the empowering part is that we can actively rewrite that internal narrative.
And every small act of follow-through, it's like casting a vote.
That's a great way to put it. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you're casting a vote for the identity you want to embody.
So doing 5 push-ups isn't just exercise.
It's a vote for, I'm someone who takes care of my body.
Writing 100 words isn't just progress on the book.
It's a vote for, I am a writer. Turning off Netflix when you plan to work. A vote for, I respect my future self.
These small actions accumulate over time.
And powerfully reinforce that new, desired self-perception. This is where the mirror statement comes in handy again.
I finish what I start. I trust myself.
I am building the life I want, one step at a time. Saying that consistently, ideally looking at yourself, it helps reshape those deep internal beliefs about what's possible for you.
Now, one crucial piece for finishing what matters is, well, not doing other things. The necessity of saying no.
Absolutely vital. You can't finish your priorities if you're constantly saying yes to everything else.
Every request, every opportunity, every distraction.
It dilutes your focus, drains your energy, you have finite resources. Finishing requires prioritizing.
So it's about protecting your time and energy for what's truly important.
Yes. It means being willing to decline things, unimportant projects, distractions, maybe even energy-draining people, respectfully but firmly.
That Denzel Washington quote was powerful. Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship.
Really makes you think, doesn't it? Sometimes choosing the comfortable path, the easy yes, the avoidance of difficulty, that's what actually hinders us long term.
So we need to choose progress, even when it's hard or the reward isn't immediate.
Exactly. Which leads perfectly into the final tangible step suggested, the finisher's contract.
This feels like a powerful way to make it real. Solidify the commitment.
It's a physical act. Writing down your personal pledge to become someone who finishes, to prioritize discipline over motivation, to embrace discomfort,
To delay perfectionism, build systems, track progress.
and ultimately to trust the process and trust yourself in declaring, I am a finisher.
And the act of writing it, signing it, dating it, putting it somewhere visible.
It makes it concrete, a daily visual reminder of the commitment you've made. It anchors that new identity.
So wrapping this all up, this deep dive really shows that finishing isn't about waiting for motivation lightning to strike.
Not at all. It's about actively implementing systems, consciously cultivating that finisher's identity, and building genuine belief in yourself.
It's about the small, consistent actions, the mindset shifts, the practical tools.
Is remembering, as the material emphasizes, that you listening.
Yeah.
You already have what you need within you to achieve your goals. You just need to unlock it with these strategies.
So keep walking, keep building, keep taking those steps.
And most of all, keep finishing.
Maybe take a moment right now, think about which of these ideas resonated most with you.
And commit to just one small step, one thing you can implement today.